Hello, folks. This is Steve Meeker. I'd like to tell you a story today about something that happened to me many, many years ago. It involved a very special place called Old Main. And the name of the story is simply Dear Old Main. I hate to admit it because I've been a professional educator for 40 years now, but when I was in high school, I really wasn't a very good student. I was kind of a slacker. I didn't really take things seriously. And so one day in my senior year, I wandered into my counselor's office and I said I should probably think about college or something for next year. And she took up my transcript and opened it up and kind of shuddered a little bit. But she said she found one A. Had made an A in photography. And she said, "Well, you seem to like photography." And I said, "Yeah, I like taking pictures pretty good." And so she handed me a catalog for Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, Texas, because they have a good photography school. And on the front of the catalog was this picture. Well, I didn't think that was a real place. I'd never seen anything like that anywhere where I'd grown up. And so I kind of thought it was a fantasy picture or something like that. But a few weeks later, I made a trip to Huntsville and saw that the old main building actually was a real thing. And I was really stunned by it. First of all, it was huge. It sat on top of this large hill on campus. Had these magnificent Gothic spires that soared high into the sky and these very, very steep gabled roofs. It was just awesome to look at. It's really difficult to describe how Old Main felt. On the one hand, it was huge, magnificent, and awe-inspiring. But on the other hand, it was also friendly, welcoming, and very approachable. I can't quite explain it, but I know that if you were having a bad day and you walked past Old Main, somehow you felt better. Sort of like a big hand came out and patted you on the back. It was that kind of a place. Upstairs on the second floor was a beautiful old auditorium. All the seats were wood, the floor was wood, the side panelings were wood as well, oil stained. It smelled terrific. And then along the sides were these beautiful stained glass windows depicting different scenes from Texas history. You could always hear music coming from up there. A lot of times it was different sections of the band that were practicing, sometimes just getting together for an informal jam session. It was always fun to go by and listen to the music that was coming out of the auditorium. It smelled great inside, like old wood and beeswax polish. Old Main had been built in 1889, and all over campus you could find pictures of Old Main from throughout the years. And I don't know, it was always comforting to see that other students and other people had enjoyed the building as much as I had throughout time. And that's me on the left in 1977. Yeah, the 70s, they were a happening time, weren't they? My brother and my sister-in-law came by to visit. My sister-in-law was pregnant at the time, and of course I wanted to show them Old Main. Unfortunately, my sloppy study habits followed me from high school to college, and my first year I didn't really set the world on fire academically. I wasn't too sure I liked college all that much. So that summer I went back home and worked for a rock mason. I spent the whole summer out in the heat, hauling bricks, hauling mud, hauling rocks. It was hot. It was a lot of work. And by the end of that summer, I decided maybe I would try college again and be a little more serious about it this time. And so I made my way back to Huntsville the next fall. Now, I learned a lot about rock masonry that I had never known before, and more than I ever wanted to know. However, when I got back and took a look at Old Main, I noticed a lot more of the details of the beautiful masonry work that had been done on it. It must have taken thousands of man hours to do all that work, and I had a new appreciation for it. The lawn area out in front of Old Main was always a fun place for students to gather. And several of my friends and I had become in the habit of, after dinner on Wednesdays, we would take our guitars and a group of us would just sit out there in a circle and we'd sing worship songs and just worship the Lord right out there. One day, these three girls came and sat down and joined us. 2 years later, I married one of them. That's my first wife, Sherry. Sherry and I were married for 27 years before she passed away in 2007. You can probably tell that I really loved this building. It's just a gorgeous place, very special to me. You could just sit for hours and look at it, the magnificent spires, the beautiful arches, the delicate masonry that had been graced its facade. Just a gorgeous, gorgeous place. The fact that I had met my first wife there made it that much more special to me. It seemed to me like it had been there forever, and in fact, I thought it would be there forever. No one knows exactly how it started. The thinking was that probably the wiring in the old auditorium had shorted out, and that oil-stained wood made a great starting place for a fire. By the time anyone noticed that the building was on fire, it was fully engulfed. In fact, the flames were so intense that it caught another historic building on fire next to it. Several brave students actually grabbed fire extinguishers and broke into that building and saved it. It's still there today. But Old Main was gone. Everyone was sad. The clouds of smoke hung over town for a full week afterwards as it continued to smolder. Everybody was distraught at this beautiful building that they'd seen every day of their lives on top of this hill. Suddenly it was gone. The next day I walked up to see what was left. Those magnificent spires that once soared high in the air, well, they now lay crumbled on the ground. The beautiful stained glass windows completely dissolved. All that delicate brickwork that had once so elegantly graced the facade had now crashed down into the lawn and even into the street below. It was devastating. As I stood there looking at the very sad scene, like losing a dear friend, I heard God speak to me very clearly. No, not audibly, but in that very clear, still, small voice. And this is what he said. Don't ever put your trust in the things of this world, because it's all temporary. It was really one of the most poignant moments in my life. You know, everything that we see around us, everything that we know, it's all temporary. I'd been a Christian for many years by that time. I had been involved in ministry on campus. I already was in my career. Um, Yet I got to admit that I was still trying to direct my life. Oh, I wanted God along to bless my plans, but I still wanted to be in charge. But I'll tell you the truth that from that day up until today, for the most part, I have managed to keep my hands off the wheel and give it to God. And really giving my life to God, to Christ, has made all the difference.